Good morning, beloveds. Only it's evening. Although Reverend Michael Beckwith always says the spiritual sun never sets, so it's always morning. So in that regard, good morning, beloveds. So glad you have joined us. And those of you online, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited. I always make a point to be here when Peter is one of our guest speakers because he is so brilliant, and he's such a compelling speaker. Clear, you're going to love him. So I'm looking forward to him. But we want to lift Reverend Mark up. He's a little bit under the weather. You know, he is the busiest person I know, bar none. He is always on the go, and his body just told him, you get to stop. So he texted me, he says, are you going to be at service tonight by any chance? And I said, yes. He says, well, will you introduce Peter? So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Eunice. I'm the senior minister here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Springs. And Reverend Mark is one of our beloved ministers, and he is so powerful in his own right. He sends out a monthly newsletter on the wisdom practices and wisdom share and spiritual practices. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we've had some powerful speakers this week and this month, and it'll continue on. But tonight I'm looking forward to introducing, I almost said Reverend, it's Peter Bedard. And when he came to the Valley, he introduced himself, and we went and we were going to have a quick coffee, which lasted about over 2 hours. Yeah. It was so interesting getting to know Peter. He does so many things in the area of integrational healing. It's different from holistic healing, which is really a narrow window of all the different modalities, but integrative healing is so expansive, Eastern, Western, and all the wonderful modalities. And he came to that passion because he was involved in an accident and had severe damage to his body and was able to use all these different modalities to heal him so that he looks as he does right now. So his body was able to be healed, and I'm sure he'll go into that little detail. But so what he shares is not just from books. It comes from lived experience. And so I came back to everybody I know and went, wow, guess who I just met? And he now lives in the desert, and he's a practitioner, and he's trying to let go of his gig in Pasadena and transfer his practitioner license to us. And I can't wait for him to do that.
It's happening.
So I don't want to spend any more time because I want you to have 100% Peter tonight. But let's just take a moment. Oh, I forgot. Reverend Mark usually gives you a preview of what next week is, and I forgot to look. So look for your newsletter, and it'll be a surprise to you. Also, if you would like to contribute in some way that supports our beloved community to keep the doors open and the electricity going and all that kind of good stuff, you can give in several different ways. One of them is easy. It's to get out your cell phone and text whatever amount. It's all gratefully received. But our text to give number is 760-389-1333. And when you do, in the message part of the text, you just put wisdom with a capital W, and then whatever dollar amount you want. And if you don't want to do it that way, then you can go online to cslps.org, and we have a donation button all over the place on our website. And you can make a donation, but please remember to mark it Wisdom Share. So we get to capture that and pass it along to Peter. So anything that you want to give is so welcomed and joyfully and gratefully received. So let us just center into our hearts. I ask you to gently close your eyes, whether here in person or online. Breathe in the love that is omnipresent. Breathe it into your heart, and with every breath, allow the breath to be a pathway to the awareness that right here, right now, God is. And therefore, all is in divine right order. And let us now move into that place of receptive, grateful receptivity as we welcome the powerful wisdom share that is coming from the depth of Peter Bedard's being. We bless him. We receive what he has to offer. We know that it benefits all of us from this moment on. And so we just send love and gratitude and thanksgiving to Peter for sharing his gift with us tonight. Blessing it all, giving thanks for it all. I release this word, I let it be so, and let us affirm it by saying, and so it is. Amen. Mm-hmm. Peace. Thank you. And here's Peter.
Da, 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 da. Hi, thank you, Reverend Eunice. That's so sweet. I really appreciate that. And that day that we went and met for coffee, I literally thought it was going to be 10 minutes. That was so fun. Thank you for the welcome, and thank you for introducing me. So I get really excited to share this work. You know, a lot of times if you meet me at my home or during the day, I'm kind of a quiet, sedate person. If you meet me out in public, I'm not an extrovert. I'm actually more of an introvert. But when I get up here and I get to share what I do and what I love, I become this extrovert. I become this excited bubble of energy. Hi, thank you for coming. If you need a pad of paper at some point to take notes, you're welcome. We can get one for you. The pads are, thanks. So this work that I came to call convergence healing, it became that because I had to heal myself, and I used multiple practices, which is why I don't necessarily classify myself as a holistic practitioner. I am holistic meaning encompassing of the whole person, but I am also open to integrative or allopathic Western medicine type of work. Western medicine has worked for me in some situations, and it hasn't in other situations. Some holistic things have worked for me in some situations and not in other situations. And I believe that we need to converge, we need to bring together all that is available to us. And that we need to, I love the metaphor of making the pie bigger, right? Instead of making it smaller and putting all of our stuff in one area, why not spread it out? Why not bring all the goodness that there is or adapt? It's very much like CSL, and it's one of the things that really drew me to Ernest Holmes and these teachings, right? Ernest Holmes is a smorgasbord philosopher, right? He goes and takes the best from all these different sources and puts them together and created CSL, right? So my story is that many years ago, I was slammed into the back of a semi-truck. So I died. Somebody pushed my bicycle. I was on a moped. Somebody pushed my bicycle as I was moving down the road, and they pushed me into a parked semi-truck. I jumped out of my body. It was a very unique experience, and I'm very blessed for that. I didn't have to experience the exact moment of being slammed into the truck. I left my body for that to happen. So my body jumped it or hit the truck, my bike hit the truck, everything bounced out in the street, and the car just kept driving on by. So I was left outside of my body in this amazing consciousness. It was a beautiful October night. And I remember the moon. And it was around 10:15 or so, 10:30 at night. And I remember being so appreciative of how beautiful the world was, at the same time as looking down upon my body, because I was up above it. I was from a perspective to see the top of the truck, and I could see my body mangled out in the street. And I thought to myself, what a beautiful world we live in. Then I went to the other side. Nobody was there on the other side. I thought there was going to be people there. I thought my dead dog and my great-grandmother that I'd never met was going to be there for me. They didn't show up. And the other side, when somebody finally did show up, I wandered around this place, what felt to me like long periods of time. And finally, all of a sudden, somebody appeared. And I don't know if this was God, my version of God, an understanding of God, an emissary of God, right? I don't know. But there was the presence of God on that other side. There was the experience of feeling so blissed. I can't explain how lovely it is on the other side. The joy, the peace, the connectedness, the oneness, the bliss. I take each of those words and multiply them by 1,000,000, and you'll still only have a fraction of what it's like on the other side. My heart gets excited just remembering that experience. And this person appeared before me, and I won't go into all the other details, but they appeared before me, and they said, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And I basically, in my smart aleck, young self, was like, "Well, that's your problem." Like, I'm here, right? They said that I needed to leave, and my prompt response was, and I won't say the word because it's an expletive, but the word was to off. And in that moment, I found myself back hovering above my body and watching my body. And an ambulance had started. A few minutes later, an ambulance showed up. I watched them put my body in the truck, and drive away. And I said, I'm not going back in there. As a kid, when all this happened, I was a young adult. When all this happened and this pain came into my life, right, I discovered that this pain wasn't just physical. My body was trashed. I had shattered this knee into little bits from here to here. The only thing intact was which is an unusual injury, the only thing that was intact was my, what's this called? No. Kneecap. It escaped me. The only thing intact was my kneecap. From here to here, everything else was little pieces of bone fragments. They were able to put all of this back together. They had 14 surgeons come in from all over the United States. And they were all experts working with the NFL, because this type of injury that was a rear injury is extremely rare. And they did miracles. Look at this. That is a miracle that I could even do that, right? But after that, they had no idea what to do with me. I cracked 5 vertebrae. They didn't know what to do with that. I split this wrist open. They didn't know what to do with that. I lost all the nerves in my hand. They hoped for the best. They didn't know what to do with it, right? I also discovered that a wound is not only physical. Some wounds are mental. Some wounds are spiritual. And all wounds, no matter where it starts, right? That was a physical wounding for me. That was the start of that wound. But all wounds have all of those aspects to it. That physical wound created a mental wound where I was in a panic for decades. What am I going to do? Am I going to be in a wheelchair? Am I going to be able to take care of myself? When I did have to use crutches and canes and wheelchairs to support myself, is this what my life was always going to be like? Sheer fear and panic. Constant. Anytime a little creak, right, a little pain shot up, the first thing that happened was my head would catastrophize, right? So there was a wound in my mind, a really big wound. These bones healed. These bones, although they've never been what they were previously, oh my God, every day I think about this, it's like a miracle. I can walk, I can move, I can't run, but I can hike, I can climb, I can squat. Holy crap, right? That's amazing. After what the trauma of this experience, it was the mental wound that I had to really look at. But everybody was focused on the physical. And it was the mental and my heart wound. As a child, I was discovered to be a dancer. Now that I'm older, I really don't show that body, but back in the day, there's football player bodies, right? And there's basketball player bodies. Well, I had the gift of a dancer's body. I was long, I was lean, I had up until my 40s, I had no body fat. I'm very blessed. Now, well, this is what the 50s look like. But I was naturally thin and long and lean. I had a lot of strength. Even though I was thin, I could lift more and push more and jump higher than anybody else. And I was discovered as a dancer. And I was immediately put into classes. And I was teaching within that first year. I was assistant teaching within that first year. Right? That's huge. That's like a natural piano prodigy, right? I had that gift. At the time that I had this accident and my knees shattered, at that time, I was set. I knew what I was going to do. I knew where I was going to go, where I was going to go. My life was laid out in front of me. I was going to study more. I was going to be in Broadway shows. I was already doing that type of work as a kid. I was in 5,000-seat houses doing this type of stuff. That was the trajectory of my life. When the accident happened, I lost that. I didn't know who I was anymore. My head was in a panic, and my heart was absolutely broken. In a way, I lost my voice. I didn't know where I belonged. And now when I get these things, like I talk about one of my professional football players that came to me, right? He had a knee injury. The doctors are taking care of the knee injury, but nobody's dealing with the fact that this guy, his head's in a panic. What's going to happen with the season? Is he ever going to be able to play again? How is he going to pay his bills? Is he going to lose his contract? He just bought a $14 million house, which was nothing compared to his salary, but is he going to be able to pay for that? And his heart. No one's talking about that. These guys have played ball since they were 8 years old. It's what they do. It's what they breathe. The heart was breaking. And so I started to look at myself and my own healing, and I stumbled for decades. Somebody would say, hey, I went to this person, whatever they were, whatever they did, and I would say, did you like it? Was it good? They would say yes, and I'd say, great, give me their number. And I would just go. Doesn't matter. I didn't care what they did. I didn't research it. I just knew that there needed to be something else out there. And all the doctors at the time, love them to death, but all they could give me was drugs and more surgeries. And I didn't want that. I had already done that. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I was in severe pain constantly. And that accident sent off a cascade effect, right? I had to learn how to walk again. Then I had arthritis and I had asthma. I had to get my brain to be able to understand my body because I would be moving in my brain, but my body wouldn't move, kind of like a stroke victim. I had undiagnosed brain damage as well. So there's two things trying to do things. I could do it in my head, but I couldn't do it in my body, right? My head and my body weren't speaking together, right? And then I had fibromyalgia. And for me, fibromyalgia was so severe that it was like having the flu every day. It was that swollen, achy, I can't think clearly, everything hurts, I can't move, right? That kind of throbbing pain. And then my white blood cells started to attack my red blood cells, and my hemoglobin started to split and shut down my organs, right? All these weird freak things. And I had to go and look at my own behavior, and I had to understand that I was causing a lot of this. My inability to heal, my inability to move forward, my resentment, my anger, my loss at knowing who I was and now not knowing, right? Not having any guidance or mentorship, right? The constant throb of pain. I was blaming everybody else, and I was a huge victim, and everybody enabled me to be a victim. Oh, poor Peter, that's so tough. God, if that would have happened to me, I don't know what I would do. Oh, it's so great that you're even doing as good as you can. Well, no, it's not. Absolutely, it's not. And I needed to take full responsibility, which meant I had to stop being a victim. I had to stop blaming the person that drove me into that semi-truck. I had to learn how to forgive. And I had to learn how to forgive for me, not for him. There's that famous saying that says, forgiveness is like putting the poison down intended for someone else. I was poisoning myself, and people were supporting me in my anger and my resentment. And I had to stop. And so, if there's any of that going on for you, I'm going to invite you to stop. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's so easy to make it everybody else's problem. It's so easy just to abdicate responsibility and blame everyone else. Look what was done to me. It's so easy. And so I call that radical responsibility, radical self-responsibility. And I encourage you to do that now. My goal in our talk today is to give you these ideas. We're going to do some exercises, right? Where you can start scratching the surface maybe a little bit different. Look at whatever you're going through. I'm assuming you're here because you're in some sort of pain. And the worst thing you could do is identify by that pain. And so I'm saying very lovingly and sternly, stop it. Stop it. It is not okay. That pain is not who you are. You are so much more. I wasn't the kid that lost his career, that was the golden child that could have been Baryshnikov. No, stop it. I am a beautiful human being who came here to do something and may not be what I thought it was, but it's what I'm doing now. And my pain has taught me so much. I am so grateful for it, I would never change it. And I look at it as a blessing now. I honor it and I bless it. And I'm going to ask you to take absolute responsibility, to love your pain, to bless it. Pain's a teacher. And when we stop looking at it as a victim, as something that's harming us, as an abuser, and we start looking at it as a teacher, suddenly things shift. My pain taught me to love more deeply than I ever knew I could. My pain taught me to be more compassionate than I never knew I could be. My pain taught me to connect with people, with you right now in this space, and to love you even though I don't know you. My pain taught me how to do that. And I'm asking you to do the same with your pain. So the first step I'm asking you to do is take radical responsibility. You are not a victim. No longer identify by that experience. I can talk about the accident now, and people look at me like I'm a little nuts because I say, sometimes I'm invited places and I say, I don't give the story. And I just say, oh yeah, several years ago, somebody drove me into the back of a parked semi-truck. I died. I shattered my body. I had to come back. I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. And all these other things came in that I had to heal. And they look at me like I would be crying, right? And I'm kind of flippant about it, right? And that was one of the first times that I knew that I was no longer identified by it. It was just part of my story. It was part of my history, but it no longer defined who I am. Does that make sense? I'm going to ask you to take that step, to no longer be identified by your pain. Did you want to say something? Oh, I heard somebody make a noise. Totally. Ah, yes. I love that word. I'm an 80s child. Absolutely. Totally. Right? Okay. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to actually love your pain. And sometimes that thing that seems so impossible. My cancer clients actually taught me this. I've been in private practice for almost 18 years. And I didn't learn this. I didn't teach this. They taught me this. My cancer clients who are in 4th stage cancer, They taught me that we need to love our pain, that there's a part of us that's suffering, and it doesn't need to be abused. It doesn't need to be resented. It doesn't need to be made fun of. It doesn't need to be punished. What I used to do to my pain, they taught me this, and I had to do some serious self-searching, because I used to have pain, and I used to say, again, I won't use the language that I use sometimes because it's not appropriate, but I would say awful things to it. So if my pain's over here, I was saying, I hate you. I can't stand you. I wish you'd just go away. I want to cut you out. I want to throw you away. I'm embarrassed by you. I'm ashamed of you, right? And that's how I used to talk to the parts of me that were suffering. That's no longer acceptable. This part of you that's suffering is with you 24/7. It's walking around with you. It's experiencing life with you. And if you were the image of my pain, that nobody could see you, just me, right? Like in a movie, we have an invisible friend. If you were my invisible friend and you were the representation of my pain, and I said those things to you, how would you feel? Worthless. Yeah, she said worthless. Yeah, I felt worthless, right? I felt who I was didn't matter. And I was treating my pain that way. And then I stopped and I said, okay, you're here, you're with me. You've been here for a while, you don't seem to be going anywhere. What if I said, I love you? What if I said, I know you're suffering. I'm so sorry. I love you. How does that feel? It just made you melt. Yeah, exactly, right? And if you were the pain coming at me, maybe you would put down the weapon. Maybe you'd drop the knife for a little while, right? And so I'm inviting you to do all these things and to do it even as we're speaking. Drop the knife. Love your pain. Instead of being angry at it, it's suffering. And there's a human condition that I think is an absolute lie. I haven't found it in Ernest Holmes yet. It's probably there. But there is a law that love, when we feel loved, we could do anything. I don't know if you've had those moments in your life, right, where you're like, I don't know if I could do this, and somebody says to you, I believe in you, or I love you, or I have faith in you, or you just pray and that voice says to you, I got your back. And you go and do things that you never thought you could do. Healing's the same way. And when we love the part of us that's suffering, that part kind of rallies and it kind of says, okay, let's do this again. Let's try. I'm willing to work with you. Right? And so I'm going to invite all of you, as well as those out there who are watching in the recording, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to let your pain take on a shape or a form of some sort. I've had people have told me that their pain showed up like a goat. Goats can eat everything until they can't. And the goat could handle everything until this person, it was so overwhelmed that it couldn't anymore. So their pain was like a goat that needed just to pause, to breathe. So I'm inviting you to close your eyes, take a deep breath. Invite that part of you that's suffering, that you try to medicate and push down. I'm inviting you to say to it, I see you. I'm sorry you're suffering. And I'm willing to love you. I see you. I'm sorry you're suffering. I'm willing to love you. And however your pain showed up, maybe it was a black hole, maybe it was a sense of emptiness, maybe it was a knife. However it showed up, what happens to it? When you say, I see you, I'm so sorry you're suffering, and I love you. Just notice. And as you know, pain is always happening on the physical level, the mental level, and the heart-spirit level. No matter the origin of the wound, there's always a layer of these to your pain. And so I'm going to ask you to talk to your pain, to learn to listen to it differently. Your pain is always communicating. You feel it. It's communicating with you. You can shut it down and tell it to go away, and you don't like it. It's just going to come back harder. So love it. And I'm inviting you to use your brain. Reverend Eunice says something I've used for years, and I love it, where she says, what's the color and the temperature and the texture of it? Well, what's the sound, the smell, the taste? So I'm inviting you to think of the word love, to give it a color that best suits you. For me, the color of love is always this golden, brilliant, shimmering light. It's like an alchemical fire, and it burns, but it heals as it burns. It cauterizes the wound. It burns away the rust. And so close your eyes again. Connect to that part that's hurting, maybe not as much right now. And give it that love. I'm going to use my words. Feel free to substitute yours. For me, that love is a golden shimmering light. It's warmth. It's a cleansing fire. It's healing. It sparkles. And I'm pouring that love right now into the part of me. And with your permission, I'm going to pour it into this room. I hope you can feel it. I am pouring love. And if you would like to join me in this, go for it. To me, it's like in a pitcher, an urn of Christ consciousness, and I pour that into you right now. This love, this heat, this fire, this healing, this golden shimmering light. And if you've poured it into this part of you that's suffering, and it's like, yes, then let some of that overflow. If it needs more, take more. The love of the universe, this perfect health, is never limited. This light is always there. This love is always there. Take as much as you need. Be greedy. Fill yourself up with it. Fill this part of you with that love, whether it's your hip or your neck or your belly or your anxiety or anything else. Fill that part of you with that love, that sparkling, golden, shimmering light. Or maybe it's a pink softness like a plushy blanket that's soft and tactile. Whatever it is, use your own words on top of mine and pour that love. And if there's a part of you that is physical, move that part only with the love. Move that part only with the love. If there's a mental part of you, fill that mind of yours, your brain, with this love. Wash it with this love like a waterfall pouring down into it. And as you do this, we're preparing for the next step. And the next step is to start having conscious conversations with these parts of us that are hurting. We're always having conversations, but normally they're neglectful conversations. And that means that we have to have our conscious brain step aside, that part of us that always wants to figure things out, logic them, understand them, that's always analyzing. So I'm going to ask you to have that part of your brain step outside in the lobby or outside at the street, if anybody's online. Invite that part that wants to figure things out, that wants to make sense of things. Let it know it's going to be able to think about this as much as it wants later. But right now is just awareness. Right now is just listening. And I'm going to invite you to listen with all of your senses. We don't just listen with our ears. You know that. Communication isn't just words. We listen with our heart. We listen with our feelings. We listen with color and temperature and texture. We listen with smell. Listen with all of your senses to how this part of you is trying to communicate with you. And so, if you will, step back from this part, however it shows up, for a moment. Let it be in your full view, held in this golden shimmering light. And whatever way you are establishing communication, whether it's telepathically or it's a thought or actual physical words, I want you to say to this part, what can I do to help you physically? What do you need to do physically that I can demonstrate with my body for you? As you talk to the pain, what can I do physically to assist you in your healing? It may want to roll in the grass. And this is where the critical mind often jumps in and analyzes and says, oh, no, you can't do that. That part that's having that judgment, invite it to wait outside. And just listen. You may feel the urge, or you may see a picture of you dancing in the leaves, whatever it is. Take a moment just to ask the question, what can I do, my pain, whatever its name is, whatever its shape is, what can I do physically to help you heal? And again, physical things, moving, singing, dancing, eating a particular way, sitting, walking, hiking, swimming, any physical thing, listening to music naked in your apartment, whatever it is, listen. And the next question is, what can I do mentally? Because my thoughts, well, they haven't been helping. The thoughts that I've been thinking have been about catastrophizing or fear or judgment or whatever it is. What can I think about right now? As you listen to this part, what can I think about that's going to offer some healing, that's going to assist in the healing process? Does it want to think about nothing and learn a meditative skill? Does it want to think about silly cat videos and just watch the cat videos and laugh? Does it want to think about learning a new language? What does it want to think about that's a healing experience for the part of you that's suffering? And keep going back to the love. You may get an answer now. Your job is just to listen. You may get an answer tonight. I got an answer before driving down the street. I had this impulse to turn on the radio, and boom, all of a sudden it was like this aha moment. That's the thing I need to do. It communicated that way. Learn to listen. And the third question is, what can I do spiritually? What can I do on that level of heart? Now, on the level of heart, I like to think of oneness, nature, connection. Not any dogma or religion. If that's your thing, great. But as I teach this, I'm asking you to connect on that level of oneness, spirit, breath. On that level of connectivity, oneness in the moment, the connection with Pachamama, with the goddess, whatever it is for you. Talk to your heart and say, what can I do to assist in the healing as you connect with the pain? What does that look like? And with this, I want to pause for a moment, and I want you to say thank you to this part and how it showed up and how it's communicating with you. Sometimes these parts don't communicate. They show up, and they kind of cross their arms. And they're like, I've been communicating with you for a long time, and you've been ignoring me. You've been drugging me. You've been telling me to go away, right? And so sometimes they're a little hesitant. Your job is just to keep listening. And I'm going to invite you now to write down what came up. A flash, an image, a thought, to take those pads of paper that you were given. And the three questions are, once again, maybe first write down how the pain showed up. How did it show up for you? What was it? A thunderbolt, a blob? I get blobs a lot. Right? Yeah, you got a blob? Yeah. They're kind of sticky and like tar. It's like, blah, they're so gross. A dirt blob, yeah, exactly. Right? So first write down how it shows up. It may have a name. The only rule on names is it can't be someone who's still alive. Right? It can't be your mom that you're mad at. That complicates things. But give it a name. It might be a nickname that you had as a kid. It might be a name you never heard of. It might be Ezekiel. Who knows? However it is. And then write down the question, what can I do physically to support your healing? And then if an answer comes, beautiful. Your job right now is just to listen. It's not to force a response. It's just to listen. The second question, what can I do mentally in my mind that supports your healing? Mr. Blob, or whatever it is, right? What can I do mentally in my thoughts, in my mind that support your healing? And write down whatever comes. And same for you online, for those watching. Write down the answers. It's important. When we just go, oh, yeah, yeah, they're like a dream sometimes, and they kind of fade when we don't write them down. And the third question is, what can I do on that spirit level? What can I do on that level of heart, connection, oneness? What can I do on that level that supports your healing? You know, for me, once when I asked that question on the spirit level, it told me to pull weeds. And my critical brain immediately jumped in and said, that's dumb. And then it said, well, that's not even a spiritual thing, right? It judged it. That's dumb, pulling weeds. Where's spirit in that, right? I had this idea that I had to go pray someplace or something like that, right? Well, no. When I finally let that part of me that was judging, and I finally let that go, and I did what was asked of me. Now, at that time, my knee had blown out, and it was swollen up like this. Literally, it was like a basketball. It was huge. And I couldn't even put any weight on my leg. And I had to hop out to my yard, right, on one leg and a crutch and all that kind of stuff. And I had to kind of get down on the ground, right? And it was a big thing to get out there and do it. But I became willing to do it. And then I started to pull weeds. And about an hour went by and I didn't realize it. I forgot my pain. I literally had this moment where I kind of went, oh, wait. Like I woke up in a way. And I said, whoa, what time is it? I was having so much fun getting my hands dirty, creating in my garden, pulling out all those weeds, nurturing the plants that I wanted, right? I was having such a good time. I was so connected to the soil, to what I call Mother Earth, to nature. I was so connected to her, right? That I forgot my pain. It literally went away. Now, my leg was still full swollen, but isn't that interesting? What does that tell you about pain? All the circumstances were still there for me to be suffering tremendously, right? I was throbbing an hour ago. Right? I was debating taking some opioids because it was hurting that much an hour ago. And when I got on the ground and I pulled those weeds, it was gone. So what does that tell you about pain? What do you think? The shift of focus is very important. Absolutely. Right. What else does that tell you about pain? Anybody else?
It's not fixed.
It's not fixed. Exactly. It's malleable. It's changeable, right? We tend to think that, oh, I have this pain, and it's always going to be there. You know, when I was doing my book here, I consulted with a doctor upstate, up in, actually, I think he's in Oregon, maybe Seattle, and he was a surgeon. His name is Dr. David Hanscom. He has a fantastic book. It's called Back in Control. If you want a specific book about back pain, it's fantastic. And he had 2 surgical units. And he closed down one of the surgical units because he was doing work like I'm doing right here. And he said something to me. He said, I had these patients that came in, and they were in extreme bony pain. And after doing the heart work, and after doing the mental work around the bony pain, or whatever was happening in their lives that got stuck in those bones, right? They had no pain. He said he would have people come in, he would look at the x-rays, and he'd be like, how are you even walking? And they would be, oh, I'm walking fine. I don't know. Why are you making a big deal of that? That was kind of their response. And as a surgeon, he's like, how does this person even move? By looking at their x-rays. Does that make sense to you? Your pain is not fixed. It is not stuck. You have the ability to work with it. I hope that gives you some hope yourself. Okay? All right. Does anybody want to share a couple of the things that maybe came up for them? Was it a surprise, or was it like, oh yeah, I know I need to do that and I'm not doing it? Because that's often there. Did any answers come in for you guys? Anyone want to throw one? Yeah?
I just never thought of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of, oh, I'm feeling my pain.
Mm-hmm.
When's it gonna go away? I never thought about working with it.
Exactly. I can just repeat that. I'm feeling, what she said was, I never thought of it. I'm just feeling my pain, and I never thought about working with it. Right? Did I say that correctly? Yeah. It is a different way of thinking, isn't it? You had raised your hand.
A little bit, yeah. So it was, first of all, thank you so much. I've been identifying with my pain. I had an epidural last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it's upper neck headaches. It's really painful. And as you were talking, I was able to sort of like take that pain and put it out here, and it looked like a liver, like a blobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I massaged it with oil. Its name is Sharon. I followed your advice. And I noticed as I was doing, and I'm doing it right now, I don't have pain as I'm talking about it.
Exactly.
Because I'm taking it out here and loving it.
Exactly. So for those of you online, he said that his pain showed up as like a liver, kind of a blob, and her name was Sharon. And he sort of loved it and massaged it, and that he had just had this severe neck pain and an epidural previously. And now as he's paying attention to his pain in this way, not through anger or resentment, he's loving it, right? You said it's gone? It's briefly gone. Watch for that. So, no, it's fine. This is good.
I've been identifying with it so much.
Exactly.
And I was at the ER crying because, I walked across the country, and I'm strong, and backpack. And this has been like you, a change of lifestyle. I'm
Yeah.
like, am I ever going to be me again?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
really love what you just did.
I want you to understand that you are always you. That's something I had to learn, right? I wasn't the child prodigy. That wasn't who I am. I wasn't the dancer. I wasn't any of those things. It was what I did. It's maybe what I really loved, but it's not really who I am. And I had to come up with an understanding of who am I. And for me, and I'm going to ask you to do the same, for me, I had to come up with the understanding and the acceptance that who I am is a representation of the divine. I love the word emanation, right? That I am that. And that is what's flowing through me. And my job was to open the door for it. My job was actually to be selfish. And it's interesting, people who are in pain, they tend to be very afraid of the word selfish. A lot of people in pain are caretakers. And one of the things that they're so afraid of in the world, as I see this as like a demographic with my clients and myself, we put everybody else first. We take care of themselves. We neglect ourselves. See a lot of head nodding going on, right? And we don't fill ourselves up. We say, oh, I can take a little bit, but not too much. There's so many other people that need that. Yes?
I was just thinking of doing this. I have naturally done this every time whether I was going through an emotional pain or physical. And yet, when the dust and grit of my daily life starts to kick in, doing this, I would feel so in tune, and pain would leave, and
Yeah.
I'd be back to normal and strength. And then I would stop listening.
Yep.
Stop communicating.
Yep.
I would stop, and then I eventually would either manifest another illness
Yep.
or another pain or another emotional whatever.
Yeah.
And then go, oh, I'm going to do this. It is like, so I was sitting here thinking, this is like a daily formula. It's like
I do this every day. This is how I've structured my life. Yeah. So the statement, if I can boil it down, was basically that this is something you naturally do, that it's something that you actually had the awareness for. I don't think that I'm any unique, right? I think I just got the download. And I think this has been out there for a time, and I'm so grateful that it came to me as well, right? And I'm so grateful that I get to share it, but it doesn't make me special. I'm special in the point that I get to do this. That's how I'm special. It's a daily practice.
It's a daily practice, not just when we're feeling pain.
Nope.
What I'm trying to say is like, that's the, for me,
Yeah.
spiritual practice is
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah.
like it's so caught up.
Yep.
You know, workaholic.
And many of us do what you do. We work the program or the support or whatever it is, this process I'm giving you, we work it to a certain point, and then we go, oh, I'm good, and we just stop, right? And when we can, I'll be right there, when we can actually say, okay, wait, this is now part of my daily language. Whenever something comes up, no matter what it is, if it's like I'm pissed off at something or I'm hurt, right? Or if I'm physically not doing well that day, I literally stop and I say, what do you need? It's part of my everyday language now. There's so many parts of us, right? If you really look at it, we are made of so many systems. There's an emotional system, there's a spiritual system, there's an energy system, right? There's a muscular, a circulatory system. There's all these systems. And the thing that holds all those systems together is you, right? And there's all these like heads of a department, I think of them as sometimes, right? And I'm like, we need to have a department meeting. We need, because this isn't okay, right? And I sit down with each of them and I'm like, okay, check in, what's going on? What do you need? You're off your game, you're upset, you're hurting, something's going on, there's a need that's not being met. How can I help you meet that need, right? And I look at myself as like the leader, I'm the captain of the ship, but all of the parts of me have a powerful voice and they all need to be listened to. And that wasn't something I was willing to do. I couldn't listen to these parts of me. I wasn't willing to listen to that part of me that was abused as a child. That was too much. I wasn't willing to do it. I wasn't willing to listen to that part of me that lost his voice, that felt like a fake, that felt like a failure. I had to listen to that part. I wasn't willing to listen to my lungs because I was always so good. I was always so great. I was always so powerful, right? And my lungs were like, nope, can't do that. I was just mad. Why aren't you supporting me in doing this? But what really happens is I have to support it. I have to go inside and support that part of me and enlist them, bring them into the pack. Does that make sense? Yeah. You had a statement or a question. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, for sharing the way that you interpret your communication with pain. I came because I was so intrigued, and something canceled that I couldn't cancel, but they canceled. And I was so grateful for that because this is very similar to the work I do. So when I read your blurb, I always say that pain is the great communicator. I say that all the time.
Brilliant.
It gives me a roadmap internally, and especially if I'm projecting it outwards. So that's just a reflection of something that's going on internally.
Yeah.
And so when I did this exercise, but again, I can agree here, I become a taskmaster and a doer, and because I'm good at hearing people and listening, then they all call me with all their problems. And so I can relate to this.
I made a career out of it. So yeah, she was saying that she's good at listening to everything,
Well,
everybody.
I make a career out of it too.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear through somebody else's voice and through somebody else's experience how they interpret this in the world. And when we did the exercise and you started talking about it, I really thought about childbirth, because childbirth, there's hopefully, not always, but normally there's a good result at the end.
Right.
Through this immense pain. And so you learn in Lamaze and other techniques to do what you described. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about, well, what's on the other side of the pain? And as we did the exercise, and I try not to judge things that come up because, gosh, we're good judgers, right? And I'm right along scary. And so it's almost like my psyche says, oh, no, X marks the spot. Don't go here.
Yeah.
Don't go
Stay away.
Stay away.
Yeah.
And so, but
So that's an indication of trauma. She said that
Right,
the part of her showed up as like a swastika to keep you away. Don't go there. These parts of us, right? Remember, there's this part of us that's trying to keep us safe. We call it, in my work, the critical mind. Some people might call it the ego or whatever it is, right? But the critical mind's job is to keep you safe, comfortable, and familiar. Now, safe, comfortable, and familiar is your pain, especially if you've been in that pain for a long time. It's what you know. The unconscious mind isn't logical. It doesn't have reasoning. It doesn't have willpower. It just has protection. That's all it has. So it's going to do everything it can to push you away. Don't go there. That's a dangerous place. I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
when I did the exercise, though, it completely dissipated.
It did,
You know,
yeah.
That's the thing. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of like a spook. You turn the lights on.
Yeah.
And monsters can't live in the
I call them ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was a similar message because, you know, it's a childhood thing. And it's more that I don't pay attention to it. You know, that I'm not paying
Yeah.
attention. And that's exactly what happens to a child if you don't pay attention to it.
Exactly.
Big trouble.
Oh, yeah. They get louder and bigger and they throw tantrums. She was saying that her pain was kind of like a child. It showed up as this child. And that after the swastika kind of dissolved and you realize that it's this part of you and that she doesn't pay attention to it. And that's so important that we actually learn to pay attention. We're kind and compassionate. So it's almost our closing time, but I want to go over a couple minutes. Is that okay with everybody? Yeah? Okay, good. So I'd like to do something with you because it's important to know, right? Everything I do seems to have 3 prongs, right? We have to deal with what's happening on one aspect, but we also have to do the other aspect. To become conscious of what's going on, right? This relationship that we have with our bodies, right? And then to actually teach our bodies. And that's when meditation and hypnosis and guided imagery and medical imagery and all these kind of things are so important. Visioning in CSL language, because what you can perceive, you can achieve. And in healing something, we don't want to go to neutral. We don't want to go to nothingness. You never want to go to that place, right? Because then you're just, exactly, right? We always want to have something. So that part of us that's in pain, we want to say, I'm sorry, what can I do to help? And then we want to hold its hand and we want to bring it to a new vision. We want to bring it to a new possibility. My work is never in going all to the past and analyzing things or that type of stuff. It's never that. It's never fixing a problem. The work that I do is always based on providing a solution. We may have to do some things, right, to get to that place. But in my opinion, we need to be solution-oriented. We need to live in possibility. And we have to know, and when we're in pain, we often don't know that possibility. So if the possibility is health, let's say, divine right health, as we would say in CSL speak, right? Whatever that is, right? You have to understand what it is. Because just fighting your pain is kind of ludicrous, right? So I'm inviting you to once again close your eyes. And I want you to think about health. And I want you to bring in the understanding of health, the color and the temperature and the texture and the sound and the smell and the taste. Because if you don't know it, you can't have it. People say to me, well, they want to be happy. And I say, well, what is happiness? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Well, how are you ever going to know you're happy if you don't know what it is, right? So if you will, join me online as well and just closing your eyes, taking a moment. And I want you to connect with your mind, body, your heart, and your brain. And you know, the heart actually thinks. The heart is a little brain center in itself. So the mind, body as one. And I want you to ask your mind, body as one, what is health? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the understanding of it? Is there a color? If I was to paint health, what color would I pick? Or if I was to communicate it to someone else so that they could understand what health is to me, what word would I describe it as? What texture might it be? I actually like the word rough. Most people think smooth or soft. Well, I love scratchy, rough towels. That is so, oh my God, it gets my blood flowing, right? Korean salt scrubs, they are so aggressive. They grab you and they rub you down with these giant granules of salt, and your skin gets all red. Oh my God, I love that. That to me, I could feel my blood flowing through me. That is a powerful, for me, a powerful statement of health. For you, it might be velvet and smooth and soft and pliable and plush. But I love that scratchy, it wakes me up. So what is your health? What is perfect divine health for you? The color, the temperature, the texture, the sound, the smell, the taste of it. And I'm asking you now to be that. So if I was a director and you were my actors, and I had you walk across the camera for the final scene, and when the audience sees you, they say, yes, they did it. They are healthy. And it's not because you said, oh, I'm healthy. It's because how they perceive you moving, speaking, thinking, the sound of you in the world. So as your director, I'm going to put you on a mark, and I'm going to say, I want you to walk across the camera when I say action, and I want the audience looking at this. I want them to actually know without a doubt that you have survived whatever story was in the movie, whatever pain you were going through, and that you are absolutely 100% filled up with health, vitality, life, love, health, perfect health. I'm going to invite you to feel it in your bones. How would you walk? How is your spine? How do you hold your neck? How do your feet move? What's the pace of that step? Are you skipping? Are you gliding? What is it like to move, to walk in perfect health? And in the count of 3, I'm going to say action. And I want you in your mind's eye to walk across that camera lens, to have that understanding of health be shining off of you. 1, 2, and action. And cut. And I want you just to pause and look back at that memory that you just created. How did you move in that perfect health? Was there a lightness of being? You did cartwheels. Beautiful. That's awesome, right? I saw your arms. They kind of did this like, I'm moving along. I'm getting it. I'm going places, right? There was that kind of experience. You smiled. Yeah. You didn't realize it? You smiled. That's very interesting. So that was your subconscious saying, that's what health looks like. That's powerful, even though you didn't get it. I'm bringing it to your attention. Yeah? So I'm inviting you now, in just a few minutes, we're going to do a little bit more, but when we close, I'm going to ask you to walk around the room in perfect health. Because you have to teach your body, and then you have to experience it. Right? So it's one thing to sit here and to visualize it, imagine it, to think about it. It's another thing to actually put it into action. Yeah? So when we're done, I want you to get up, and I'll let you know when that is. And I want you to move around in that perfect health. Maybe it's not a cartwheel, maybe it is. Whatever it is. Right? Maybe it's a bunch of like cheerleading moves or something. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm asking you to fully embody it. Not with words. It could be a sound like woohoo. Right? It could be that. But I want you to explore it not through language but through physicality and sound. Is that all right to do? Good. So, I also brought 2 books, and the first 2 people to say I love myself, get 2 books. All right, I heard you, and I heard you. So you get a free book, and I'd like to pray us out. So if you'll, question. Yes, absolutely. So thank you, because I'd love to let everybody know that. So I have a website called Convergence Healing. That's CONVERGENCE, Convergence, like a coming together, which is what we're doing, right? Convergencehealing.com. You can find me on YouTube. I have, I think, like 200-300 videos on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/Convergence Healing. I have interviews that I've done. I have interviews I've done of other people. I had my own TV show for a little while that's on there. You get all that type of stuff, right? You can find me on Facebook as well, just Convergence Healing or my name. And the book is available as a paperback, as an audiobook, and as a digital book. So you can find it on Amazon, or Kindle or Audible. It's published with Simon & Schuster, so it's easy to find. All right? Thank you. So if we'll take a moment, and I love to just pray us into this experience. And so if you'll join me in just simply breathing. It's my experience that the divine is always present, and that one of the ways we connect to the divine, with the divine, is by breath. And so I'm inviting you to breathe the divine, which is in itself perfect health, to breathe it in as we connect, as we share this moment. And Father, Mother God, I am so grateful for this experience. Thank you for this opportunity to share my love. Thank you for knowing that there is no separation. That's what's true for me is true for everyone. And as I heal myself, everyone can do that too. That I am not the exception, I am the example. And I am so grateful to be your example. And as God is perfect health, I accept that perfect health. Not only do I accept it in my life, I declare that who I am is the perfect health. And that as I know this for me, I know it for you. And I simply release these words with gratitude in my heart, because I don't have to work so hard. I used to think used to have to work so hard. But that love of God, that perfect health is right there. And so thank you. And please, let's affirm this together, that the perfect health of the divine, that you are perfect health, by simply saying, and so it is. Thank you. All right. And now I'm inviting you to walk around the room as the example of your perfect health. Let's